can't remember. But this hypnagogic retrieval was, as I say, it has been typed up and entered into the TMI Facebook group, and also Assembly Point and a couple of others. But I found myself emerging through that sort of surreal little circus of hypnagogic fantasy people coming and going, which is probably a fantasy, but it's just swirling around inside your head. And I sort of pushed my way through it and found myself in what I would call a small community assembly hall somewhere. I could tell by the behavior that it was not a hell realm, but a lower astral, because people were they were talking fairly loudly, and quite a racket going on. And it was like when a meeting's about to come to order, so everyone's kind of shouting what they want to shout before they have to shut up. So I'm standing next to this youngish, maybe middle-aged woman who's got her head hanging in shame, and 3 or 4 other women are nagging her spitefully, like they're sitting on a bench against the wall. And the issue about nagging seemed to revolve around not speaking her native tongue or native dialect, and speaking English instead. Now, it was really quite something. And I mean, they could have been nagging her about any number of things, being married and taking a lover, or abandoning her kids, or whatever. But she was really a lot of negative energy, and she was hanging her head in shame in a heck of a state. And so I sat down beside her and listened in for a minute. And it was a very noisy community hall, lots of people there, and nobody except the people right around her were paying any attention. And the ones that were being spiteful, boy, were they being nasty. But anyway, I sort of let my head close to her and said, you want to get out of this place? And she kind of looked at me and said, and nodded, And don't forget, this is in the middle of a hall holding maybe 200 people, and it's noisy. And I could tell by the vibe that it was the kind of lower astral where people who like to bicker and squabble and argue, like that's where they argue. Sorry, that's where they get together like birds of a feather. And nobody was paying much attention to me and this woman that I shook her by the hand, and we walked through the crowd. And I kind of knew somehow where the side or the back door was. And we went up a little set of stairs and out into this backyard that was kind of scruffy, like in an old industrial area where the yards hadn't been looked after for ages, junk lying around. And we just kept walking. And then as we walked into a sort of scrubby forest, it turned into a sort of very pretty little parkland kind of area with fruit trees and, decorative bushes and fruit trees. And she's kind of amazed and trusting me. And I'm saying, come on, keep going, we'll get there. And the next thing we know, I see these lovely picnic tables with decorative umbrellas over them, like you might have a cafe in the countryside, where there would actually be a building and then several picnic tables a few yards away. And I said, "You like that?" And she said, "Oh yeah." She was really happy to see the change, and of course didn't know how the change had happened. I think she'd just gone into the lower astral where her tribe or her nation had gathered. When I say nation, obviously that implies a lot of people. I don't mean that, but again, birds of a feather. And I wouldn't say that she was argumentative. She was weak-willed and soft-hearted and would attract nasty behavior. So we sit down at this sort of lovely little rural sort of cafe thing. And sure enough, within seconds, an astral plane server comes by and asks us if we'd like some tea and cakes. So we sort of nod at her, smiling, and off she goes. And as they often do when they astral plane. They just go around a corner, manifest the stuff that they want, and bring it back to you. Of course, the person that I'm bringing, they don't realize the art of manifestation at that point. And we get this lovely little pot of tea and some little cakes to eat, and we go through this little ritual of having tea and cakes. And I can tell she's really charmed that someone's treating her nicely. It must be a fairly brutal culture that she came from, or a brutal level of her culture. I wasn't quite sure. And so we're sitting there enjoying that, making small talk. And then some other people come by and, pretending like they just discovered the place. Oh, isn't this lovely? And oh, if only we'd known about this when we went out for our afternoon walk. And then they sit down at a table next to us and we exchange greetings. And I say, come on and join us. Knowing, of course, that they're astral plane helpers. And they come and sit down and, make small talk with this lady and get their own tea and cakes. And a little social occasion occurs. And at a certain point, I sense this lady's quite comfortable. And I stand up and say, well, I guess I better be going now. Very nice to meet you all. And she looks a little shocked at me and sort of on the edge of feeling abandoned, but not quite. And she's just having such a pleasant time that she accepts my departure. And off I go. And that was the extent of it. And after that, I sort of disappeared back into that sort of fantastical hypnagogic state that you have when you're, falling asleep or waking up.
Gordon,
Yes.
What prompted you to have that incident happen? I mean, you were in your hospital bed, or you just?
Yes. I'd been sort of drifting in and out of the hypnagogic state for at least 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
You're in this situation where you're jam packed with painkillers, and you've got IV this and IV that, and they're coming to test you every couple hours and giving you a couple more pills, and then you start to eat a little bit, so you have a breakfast, and sure enough, all you've got the energy for after breakfast is to lie down and fall asleep again. And so you just sort of accept it and get used to it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd been in that state for a couple of days, but I had vaguely recalled, I forget on which posting, Jürgens Yu had a couple of months before suggested that the hypnagogic state could be used as a springboard for projections. So back then, we'll say 6 weeks. I can't quite remember. I tried to do it. I tried about 4 different times, and I couldn't pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned it to Jürgen on whatever, it'd be a Facebook group probably. That's usually where I chat with him. And said, well, I gave it a go, Jürgen, but I couldn't seem to pull it off. And but thanked him for the suggestion. So then weeks go by, and then I get sick and I'm in hospital, yada, yada, yada. And suddenly, well, not suddenly, but I'm in this position where it's kind of effortless, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it happened, I think. Just being slightly spaced out on all these painkillers and sleepy all the time. And whereas when Jürgen had suggested it, I kind of sat down like this guy that knows what he's doing and tried to do it and put too much effort into it.
Yeah.
And kind of screwed myself up.
Mm-hmm.
So basically that's the situation.
Thanks for telling us.
Sure. Well, I'm glad I was able to remember to tell you. David, I was thinking about telling it to you like right after I get out of hospital, but I kept forgetting.
Yeah, that's okay. I did read it though.
Yeah,
like
cool.
You said on that Facebook group that we're in. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Gordon, can I just say, I had no idea you'd been in hospital. I'm terribly sorry. Had I known, I would obviously send best wishes, but we all send lots of love and healing to you and hope you're better soon. But I didn't realise because I saw you a fortnight ago and you were fine. So I'm really sorry.
It was very sudden, Julia, very sudden. When your gallbladder ruptures, it's almost instantaneous. Oh, I didn't know that till it happened to me. And the gallbladder is so close to the heart that you think it's a heart attack. I really did. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be one of those 72-year-old guys that gets a heart attack, and if he doesn't call 911 in a hurry, he's going to be dead on the living room floor. So next thing you know, I'm in the ambulance with the paramedic.
I didn't know that either, Gordon. I had no idea. It sounds like a nightmare.
It was initially there, but the paramedics were God, are they good? They're like angels of mercy. You know, they've got you in the thing. They're driving away like mad, and the guy's talking to you, and he says, "Give me your vein. I'm gonna." And he couldn't find a vein to stick the syringe in because he said, "Oh, you're dehydrated." And then before the lady comes around, she tries it, and they're trying to give you morphine, right? And so then they've got a backup. They've got this thing that's a morphine stick, and they rub it under your arm. And he said, "This will take 10 seconds instead of 2." And he was right on. 10 seconds later, I'm like in dreamland, marvelous stuff. Very efficient, very, very efficient. And then I'm in hospital.
You must promise us you'll take it easy. And if you don't feel up to things, we'll all completely understand. I mean, the most important thing is that you're well for us. Anyway, we all send you lots of love and healing.
Well, thanks, Julie. I've been taking it easy for the past week now. And I've been keeping people on Facebook notified. And that's where I got this giant wave of love. My first thing I put up got like 55 responses. So, it's that really does you the world of good to feel that a lot of people care. And that's pretty much what happened.
But you thought it was a heart attack, not the gallbladder.
Yeah, because we've got a number of friends and relatives that have had their gallbladders out, but they got it out because it was giving them trouble, and they went to see the doctor, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's the gallbladder." Whereas I had this attack, and I'm not kidding you there. It went from nothing to heart attack levels of pain in 3 seconds. It was incredibly fast. And because it's up at the upper end, it's just below your rib cage, and it's like just inches from where your heart is. And I'm thinking, oh God, that's what it is. I got to do something right away. So I called 911. Anyway, that was fine, and I'm fine, pretty much fine now. So please don't worry about me anymore.
Well, you look great. So
yeah, thanks, dear. I've been, I'm still sleeping a lot, but I have a good 2 or 3 hours of good solid energy every sort of afternoon, so I can get stuff done.
You saved yourself for this podcast with your energy.
That's what Cynthia said to me yesterday. Don't go out shopping tomorrow morning. Wait for the podcast and go shopping later. And she's right, because when I go out for a couple of hours, I come home, pack away everything, and then sit down, and the next thing you know, I'm asleep.
There you go.
But I'm good now. So thanks for all your concern, dear, and friends. I appreciate it. I must say, putting that thing on Facebook was astonishing. Like I say, 30 responses one day and another 30 the next day. Just swamped with love and concern. It was lovely.
That's great.
So does anyone forget my experience. What about you guys? What experiences have you had that you'd like to talk about before we get started? Anybody? David?
Well, I'm still having the stuff where, I'm going to tell one today. It was another dream that I had that led into a retrieval. And then earlier today, I was out walking on my nature path and kind of doing what we're going to do next. And something's starting to come out now. Things come in pieces with me. Yeah. And I just collect the pieces. I come back, I write it down, and then another day I'll go out and what can you tell me today? And I get more, and finally I end up with a complete story. So that's what I've been doing. Still having them. The dream thing is the main thing. And it's kind of sounds like it's like when you were in the hospital in that dream state or whatever you call it. I'm wondering if that's what's happening to me. I'm in a certain state, and I'm seeing like visions and dreams and that type of thing. It's always like that.
Yeah. Well,
Anybody else?
certainly, I'm certainly not suggesting that anyone use any other method. I was attracted to that because Jurgen suggested a month or so before, and I've followed his advice and opinions for years. So if he says something, I assume it's going to be interesting, and it usually is. So if anyone's welcome to make a comment, but if no one wants to, then we'll head into the meditation.
Sounds good.
So please, everybody, relax. Let us move into that quiet space of the eternal moment. And in whatever chair, couch, wherever you happen to be relaxing, reposing, I would only suggest that you close your eyes, that we're not using our physical eyes, we're using our inner vision. So please slow your breathing. Try to let go of what ever happened earlier today, and whatever you might be suspecting or anxious about for tomorrow, let that go too. That can all be dealt with later. Right now, we're going to live in the eternal moment and move around in it. So please, in a relaxed state, allow your spirit body, your astral body, to rise up out of your physical. Here it goes. It's moving on up above your head, up through the ceiling of whatever room you are in, and then up through the roof of whatever building you are in, whether it is a house, an apartment, or a stacked condo. Just move on up. There's nothing can hold you back. You're in your astral body. Here we are in the airy spaces above our communities, whether it be city, town, or village, or perhaps a rural house on its own out in the fields. I don't know. And breathe that lovely air up there. Allow that to invigorate you. Look around at your community. See what's there, what's floating around. And now I will suggest that either in company with your guides or by yourself, move on up to whatever astral space in time, i.e. the recent past, the far past, the near future, if you like, and see who you meet as you move through this astral space. As you know, there are a number of levels in which you might find people. The immediate post-physical level, where there will be ghosts floating around, not knowing quite what to do, and a bit puzzled as to what may have happened. Or the borderland level between the physical and the astral, which is often very gray and misty. And you will find souls kind of floating, wandering through that level too. Or a little higher up, the lower astral levels where there are actual landscapes and communities and, how shall I say, nature. Maybe not quite as beautiful as the Summerland, but still place to hang your hat when you don't know quite what to do, and which a lot of people do. And some of you might be interested in finding where ghosts hang out according to their desires, their patterns of behavior, anything from churches to casinos to major sports events to parks to fancy cathedrals, any number of desired destinations. You can check out any of them. You'll always find somebody there. So with that in mind, I bid you all au revoir and enjoy your adventures. And we will reconvene in about 15 minutes.
Gordon, it's been about 20 minutes.
Okay, thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Well, everybody, I hope you are enjoying or have enjoyed your little afternoon adventure here. And perhaps you'd like to continue a little for a couple of minutes.
I think
And if you,
everybody's out now.
okay, welcome back, everybody. Make sure and bring all your little bits and pieces and aspects back into your body and get settled and in the physical, and we can begin to share our experiences.
We had Margot come and join us.
Yes, I noticed Mark came in a little late. Yes. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, thanks, Gord and David. I'm really sorry. I chimed into the wrong one. I think it was. Is it your wife, Wendy? David? Somebody.
It's
It says.
Wendy-
It
yeah,
says Wendy Zanet. Oh no, that's Victor's wife.
Yeah.
Victor's wife.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, she had hers come up on my screen, and I thought that was you guys. So I went into there, and I noticed a whole bunch of different changes. And by the
Yeah.
time I got here, it was too late. So I'm just here as an observer today.
Oh, sure. Yeah, someone's using Wendy's room, whoever is hosting that. That's why you saw her name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure. Does someone want to break the ice? If not, I will. Okay, now we'll have Larice come in there. Go ahead and unmute, Larice.
Okay. As I was rising up over the top of my building, my apartment building, I started to notice people just kind of, aimlessly floating around out there. At first, it looked to me like floating around out there, but I think to them, they're in some kind of, landscape, more like if you were walking around in the physical, and they didn't seem to know what they were doing there. Like they were confused. Some of them were angry, and some of them were frustrated, and some of them were sad, and some of them were just confused. Like, what am I doing here? So I started talking to them. And I live in a seniors apartment complex, and so we have a lot of departures from this place. Like very often there's, there'll be an ambulance here or there or whatever. And so, and of course, a lot of people know exactly where they're going, but there was quite a number of people that didn't get anywhere after they left the body. And I was surprised. So I was just asking for them to tell me what's going on, like what, and, I got things like this, like, somebody said, well, I thought that, I would go to heaven when I died, and I don't understand why I'm not, what's going on with this? Like, what? And so I asked her, I said, were you really like worried about somebody in your family on earth before, right before you died? And she said, yeah, I was, and I said, oh, that's the reason. Don't worry. It doesn't have anything to do with you being a bad person or anything. And then, one guy said, well, I'm sick of this BS because I was, basically what he was trying to do was boss his family around for, being in spirit, and they weren't hearing or seeing anything, and he was really frustrated. And there were all these different, and I'd ask each one of them what's going on, why, what's the problem here, and one or two of them didn't know they were dead, but most of them did, but they just didn't know what to do. So I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what I should do here. And somebody who was with me says to me, we're going to have a train. We're going to board people, and we're going to stop at different places along the way where they need to be. I said, okay. So I told them that they could, I said, you guys, you know what? There's going to be a train that comes here, and we can all get on it, and then they'll know where we're supposed to go. And so when the train came, a lot of people were ready to get on it because we had talked about stuff, like we had talked about issues that they had and why they might not have moved on, and what, and some people were worried about tickets, and I'd say, no, there's one in your pocket, don't worry about it, and they'd find one. So we all get in the train, and there's quite a few people on there, and the train starts up, and they start to have a good time. Like, it started to be that people were partying on the train. Mm-hmm. And so I went to see who the engineer was, and the engineer was a woman that I knew, who is, I consider her to be quite spiritually evolved, and she passed, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or 9 months ago, something like that. Or anyway, so I saw her, and she was driving the train, and she was having a really good time doing it. And she said, we're gonna travel for a while and give these people time to lighten up a little bit, and then we're gonna stop at all these where they need to stop, at all these places where they need to stop, and they'll know when they need to get off because they'll see something they recognize, or they'll be able to tell. But we're going to travel for a while and let these guys, loosen up. So that's what happened. They traveled. There was quite a bit of time between when we got on and the first stop. And then they called I didn't really hear the station name or anything. But there were people looking out, and there were people that recognized where they recognized something. Like there'd be a building there that they had known when they were young, or there would be some people there to meet them, or there would be something that they were just like really anxious to get off. And some of them, we started out approaching some of the lower realms that they weren't bad, but they weren't really good either. They were probably like below the Summerland, but they were okay, and that's where those people felt comfortable. And then as we went on, there was less time between stops, and it got quieter because these people were more contemplative, and they were just really kind of interested in what was going on and how they were feeling and what they were experiencing and where they were going to be. And there would be, there were stops, like some of those stops were called out in Spanish and different things. And people were, even by the time we got to the first stop, there was a load of happy people getting off the train, and it got, although quieter, more, it moved kind of in from happiness to joy. And people would, there would be stops, people would get off, and then, when we finally got to the very, I don't know where the top was. It might have been even a little bit above the Summerland at the very top, and just a few people got off, but it was really beautiful there. And they thanked us for our assistance, and that was it.
Thank you for that. That was interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it sure was. Anybody that wants to make a comment, just raise your hand. Very detailed.
Yes, yes, details
That
for
happens
sure.
to me a lot. Like I can't even catch all the details. There's so much
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
I don't know how you can remember all that because everything that you said, I got to write it down.
I was just going to say that Larice's recollections are always so incredibly complicated and intricate and absorbing. I don't know how she does it, but they're full of detail. It's amazing. Thank you, Larice.
Sure. I have a general facility for remembering things because I've had to in my life. That, like I didn't take notes in college because it would have been too much trouble. And I didn't record my lectures. I just remembered what I could remember, and I really developed my memory because of that. And of course, it's easier to write things down now, but now I just don't. I just remember.
Yeah. I think like you and me are opposite. I do better writing down than
A lot of people do. Yeah, a lot of people do. I don't know what it is with me. I do know that, I developed my memory because at the time it was easier than sometimes I couldn't write things down at all because I just didn't have a device with me that I could do that with. So and as like in life, in physical life, I do have to write down more things than I used to, like people's phone numbers and stuff. When I was young, I could remember all that junk, but I can still remember these kinds of things without having to. I'd have to write it down if I was going to tell you 6 months later, but if it's right after it happened, I can do it.
Well, that was like a standard retrieval. If you read some of these books and things and some of Gordon's stuff, leaving on planes and boats and that kind of thing, they're going someplace.
Yeah, and I've been reading a book. You're going to shoot me because I can't remember the name. A very recently released book, and he's obviously a participant or a graduate from the Monroe Institute, and he's quite good at retrievals. And there's several accounts of participating in large group retrievals using buses and trains.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. I should have. Since I've yacked with you guys, and before the hospital thing, I came across quite a few new books of out-of-body experience, and I didn't want to mention them till I sort of read them and could speak about them intelligently. But I'm working my way through. There's been quite a little glut in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 months.
It's funny how like a few of us are in the dream group Zoom. And so we interpret our dreams, and a lot of our dreams are similar to what you had. It's transportation, taking people places and all that. I think it's all connected, what we're doing now.
I think it probably is, because now that you speak of that, I have a lot of train dreams just for my own, like I'll just dream I'm on a train a lot.
Yeah. It's very common. Any other comments for Larice? If not, you go ahead, Denise.
Let me lower my hand first. I wasn't going to share, but then I was nudged by spirit to Google the name that was given to me. And when I Googled it, my chin dropped. So I decided I'll share. Okay. So, we're doing the meditation and we go above the house. And when I got above, I was met, it was like a magic, the magic carpet rides. It was a guy on a magic carpet ride. And I have a Hindu guy, but he wasn't Hindu, he was Oriental. His eyes were closed and he was in a yoga pose. But we could communicate, and I was like, okay, what's going on? And he wanted me to still my mind, you know what I mean? Quiet the monkey mind, and to just kind of use him kind of like a meditation. It would get me to calm my mind. Like, okay, what's going on? We're doing the soul retrieval. And I had a little bit of a monkey mind, and then I came back to, to the guy on the magic carpet ride. Then all of a sudden, and I started. It felt like the room went black, even though my eyes are closed. Right? It got real dark. Then it felt like musty and moist, and that like I was in a cave. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, I felt like this male energy, and I was in water, and I felt like I was trapped. But it didn't feel like it didn't, it felt like I was injured and was somewhere entrapped. And it was not a quick death. You know what I mean? Like a drowning happens within a minute or two. This felt more like a prolonged. And then, because I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, okay, must be, solar circle or something, right? So then I'm like, okay, so what do I do? And then I'm like, okay, well, you're trapped. So I said, you realize that you're no longer in your physical body, you're in your spiritual body. So you're not actually trapped anymore in, you know what I mean, under the water. You can move on. And, and I felt like the sadness for this family behind. But I said, in the next realm, even though you stayed here trapped, you will, you'll be able to see everybody and what everybody's doing or whatever have you. And I'm like, okay. And then Gordon says, come back. And I'm like, everybody's always got these long stories. Mine seem to be, short and sweet when we get to it or something. That, I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't super talkative, chatty Cathy. So Larice was talking, and I'm like, okay, Google. Oh, and I heard the name Stanley. And then he said Stanley Livingston. And I'm like, oh, isn't there Stanley in one of our group? Maybe that's ego. And then he said, no, Stanley Livingston. So I got nudged, and I Google Stanley Livingston, and I come across this headline: divers join the search for the body of second brother feared drowned in Orkney. Stanley Livingston, also known as Boyd. And as soon as I read it, I got the goosebumps, and I got the goosebumps right now. So that was just really interesting and cool for me, because I wasn't really sure, but it appears as though it was, because I'm looking at a headline right now. You know what I mean? Of Stanley Livingston. So that was pretty interesting. And he's, you're not trapped in your physical body anymore. You're in the spiritual realm, and that was it. Or he's still trapped there, and I got to meet him because it was too evidential when I found the headline.
I got a question for you. When you said that you were trapped, you said you were trapped. Was it you that was trapped, that you saw trapped? Or
I was feeling, I felt I was feeling a little panic. You know what I mean? I felt that realized when I felt the dark and the musty, and then I started feeling trapped, and then I felt like water, and I felt like a male, you know what I mean? It felt like it was kind of channeling through, you know what I mean? Yeah. It felt like Stanley was channeling through me. Like I was feeling what he was feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was the best advice I could give him in the moment. And it appeared to work. And I know Gordon says sometimes just acknowledging someone, I don't know. And then I Google it, and then there's this entire story. Now, it doesn't go into the details of it. And there's another headline that I didn't get to yet, but that certainly it ties in with, a death in the water and whatever he had. So.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what did I do? Like I said, I'm new to this, Gordon. So.
No, that was fine.
It was fine. Okay.
Yeah, totally fine. It's exactly, you said what happened to you.
Yeah.
And it fits right in.
Okay, but isn't that kind of cool that I was actually able to Google this name that I heard, and I am actually, and whether it's the same person, you know what I mean, or not, it could be a coincidence, but I think that was my team's way of letting me know, like how sometimes you struggle, am I making it up? You know what I mean? Yeah. Is this my ego? And I really, especially because I get the goosebumps looking at the headline. You know what I mean? So I know I'm not making it up. So I definitely had to share that.
I bet you'll get more of those.
Yeah.
Same type thing.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a pretty good verification there, dear. It doesn't get much better than that.
I know, right?
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for that. We can always use a verification every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll go ahead with mine now. Last time that we were here, I did the meditation like everybody's doing, and I was able to start a rescue, and that was the one where I came out of the rafters of where I live and found myself in the sky around a farm in Denmark, and went down into the farm and looked, and I'm just reviewing it right now with you. And there was a family that lived in there, and I saw, but then the dad died. It was a mother, a father, and 2 kids. The dad died, and then I guess there was 3 kids, and the one that I'm helping was a girl that was somewhere around 12 years old that had drowned in a well outside. And but she didn't go all the way to her crossing, and she became a ghost. And when I saw her a second time, the family had moved out, the mother and the 2 kids, in an older car. So I know that it was back 1930s or whatever, just by what the car looked like. And but when I went in, then it changed to another vision when I'm inside of the little farmhouse, and there's a fire going in the fireplace, and I look over, and there's like the 12-year-old girl sitting in the chair. And at that point, last time, it was time to come back to the group, and I didn't finish it. So today, when I was taking my walk around, I wanted to see if I could finish it. And then also, when we were doing the meditation, all of us, I was getting downloads for both of those. And so that was what I went back again. I was able to go back to the place, and I went inside of the farmhouse, and I looked again, and the girl was exactly how she was when I saw her last time. She was in the chair with the fire going. And then, so I started talking to her. And also, she's not aged at all. She's in all this time that she's been dead, 70 years, she's still 12 years old. And I said, why are you staying here? And she said, I wrote some of this down, so it's going to be part of me reading it. I'm very comfortable. It's warm in here. Plus, I'm scared to go out. And we just kept talking. And I said, well, did you have any friends when you were alive? She said, yes, my best friend was Sandy. And then I looked up, and now we were outside of the place, and I saw a horse, an older horse, a male horse. It was light brown and was in the pasture nearby and was eating grass. And I said, I see why you named him Sandy, because it's the color of his skin is the color of sand. She goes, that's right. And then when we went out there, her whole character had changed. It was more like I saw joy on her face, and she was very happy. And then I asked her a question, well, what did you like about Sandy? And she answered me, riding him. And I looked back at the horse again, and all of a sudden the horse had a saddle on. And I saw her get up and mount Sandy, and both of them rode off into the afterlife. And that completed that one.
Nice one.
So if anybody wants to make any comments on that before I go into my other one, or just think about it, and if you want to say anything else, you can. Okay, so in the second one, usually when these things come up that I know that we're going to have a Zoom, I ask, okay, dream team, can you give me a dream so that will lead to a recovery? And it always seems to happen maybe 3 or 4 days before I'm coming here. And it happened again. And so I see how these people die. Denise, like you just saw the man that drowned, it's the same thing. I see that. And in this one, there was like 3 parts to the dream. I'm just gonna make it really simple. And I saw 2 men inside a small manufacturing building, looked like a small factory. One was about 55 years old and the other was about 30. And it was like early in the morning when there was nobody else there yet. They were having an argument. And then it was screaming and stuff. And then, but I did learn that the young man, he went by the name of Walt, W-A-L-T. So it's 3 parts to the dream. The next part of the dream was I saw Walt again, and he was riding his bike down a steep hill. And then all of a sudden he had to slow down and slam on his brakes on the bike. He had a ring in his hand, and the ring went flying and it disappeared. He lost the ring. The third part of the dream was I saw a river that was flowing really fast. It's kind of like in the wintertime. There's rapids, and I think there might have been a waterfall there. So 3 parts to the dream. One, they're arguing. These 2 men are arguing. And I think I said, one guy's older than the other. One's 30 and one's 55. The second one is this guy, Walt, who was in that dream, in that part of the dream. He's a younger man. He was riding his bike down a hill with this really nice ring in his hand, and he lost it when he stopped, and it disappeared. And then the third thing was about the waterfalls. So what does all that mean? So at that point, I had the dream, and then the last couple of days, I tell you, I go on this nature trail. So I just walk out there and I say, okay, whoever sent me that dream, do you want to start talking about this? And then I start getting some downloads and some telepathy. And I found out by talking, who I was talking to was this young guy that was 30. And it turns out that factory was his dad's business, that his dad had built that business up. And I'm not sure what they were making, but they were manufacturing something there. And it was a small thing, maybe 20 employees when they were there, but there was no one there when they were arguing. And I said, well, what were you arguing about? He said, well, I came in early, and I thought I was dressed appropriately. And my dad said, I don't like what you're wearing. And it just escalated their argument to the point where the dad says, okay, you're done. I don't want to see you again. You're not coming back here again. I'm not going to see you. And okay. So that was terrible. And then I said, well, to this guy, Walt, I said, what has your life been like with your father? And he said, oh, it's been absolutely terrible. My entire life. I don't think he even wanted to have me as a son. We had no relationship. We didn't go to Boy Scouts. He didn't go to any games that I had. We just had no relationship. And then after high school, my mother talked him into hiring me to working for him in hopes that we would somehow get along. Well, that didn't happen. And so, and then I asked him, well, what the dream that you sent me, because I think they sent me the dreams. I said, what was it with the bike and riding your bike and losing the ring? And he said, oh, I was trying to show you that was a breakup of my marriage. That ring was like the wedding ring. I said, well, what happened to your marriage? He says, when I was in, let's see, let me look here. Oh, I married my high school sweetheart, and we loved each other back in high school. But then with all this stuff happening with my dad, I just became clinically depressed. I couldn't pay attention to my kids, and I couldn't pay attention to my wife. And she just got tired of it and walked out with the kids one day and left. And then I said, well, what's that third part of the dream, about the water flowing? Because, well, he says, well, that was a suicide. I jumped into the water and I went over the falls. Mm. Okay. Then it went to something different then after that, where we were in a different place, and I could see a vision of him in a group with about 15 other people sitting around in a circle, and there was a guy leading it, and it was a group, you know, to help. These people were all suiciders, and they were dead, and it was a group in the afterlife that they're trying to help each other and try to heal. And he says he did very well on that, and he talked it over a little bit with me, saying that they told him, well, you were clinically depressed. I mean, you probably couldn't help a lot of this, and they were just helping him. And they said, well, you're forgiven for it all. You can still move on and continue with your crossing. Everything's fine. And so we got to the point where he was ready to go. And when this happens, usually someone shows up and takes him, like in the last thing that I told you about, the horse came. Well, and this time it was a couple people from the group, the counseling group, that came, and they took him over to complete the crossing. So those are my two that I have to contribute today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Quite detailed as usual, David. Quite detailed.
Surprised I remembered all that.
Mm-hmm.
After what I said, I got to write everything down.
Wow. Anyone else care to ask a question or make a comment?
Did you have anything going on, Gordon?
I find myself at the beginning of the meditation thinking about the UFO researcher that I had mentioned to Carol, James Fox, and the interview I saw with him just yesterday, because he's out, you know, promoting his new film, The Program. And for some reason, I wanted to see who was hanging around him in spirit. And so I projected to this image of James Fox. And there was at least one extraterrestrial biological entity. And I think it was the ones that they call the tall whites, or the Nordics.
Mm-hmm.
And had a little interaction with him. I think it was a male. And I said, are you helping James out? And he said, yeah, I'm trying to give him a lot of positive support because of the, you know, he's out promoting this film and he needs as much support as he can get, spiritually, I guess. And he asked me what I was doing. And I said, oh, I'm kind of like a psychic spirit guide guy. And I said I wasn't particularly protecting James, but I just sort of came by to see how he was doing because I admire his work. And I think the tall gray, or the tall white Nordic, as they're sometimes categorized, they're very humanoid, tall, pale-skinned. They seem to be quite evolved beings and don't have any hidden agenda particularly. They just like to help where they can. And it was just a pleasant interaction. And then I came back from that, and I didn't seem to have a need to do anything else. So I checked in on a few of you guys, see how you were doing. Carol, Julia, and Stanley, and just sort of gave a little energetic support to those people. And then it was, David said it was time over. So I came back from that.
No, Julia, go ahead.
Well, you can rely on me not to have a very detailed experience. I'm speaking because Gordon did feature briefly in mine. I don't know if that's when he came to see me, but I don't think I even achieved some kind of rescue like last time. But when I rose up out of this house, there are fields around. I sort of went to the adjacent field, and it's probably because I'm being influenced by Christmas at the moment. In actuality, it's rainy and cloudy and nighttime now, but it was all daytime and it was all snowy in the daytime in my imagination or whatever it was. And I felt there was an old-fashioned sleigh coming along being pulled by horses, but there was something very loud and garish about it. It wasn't as beautiful and serene as you might have supposed. That was a bit weird. And then the image changed to my son as a little boy, building a snowman. That made me very sad because he passed to spirit at the age of 20. But then immediately I started feeling sad. He was there again, looking at the age he was when he passed, and he was beaming at me as if to say, don't worry, everything's fine. So I started to feel happy again. And then my eyes were closed all the time. I wasn't looking at Gordon on the screen, but I got an image of Gordon in my mind's eye because I was quite upset to hear that he was in hospital. I didn't know. So I imagined I was sort of swirling some energy round here, wherever the gallbladder is, to make him all pure and clean inside. And then because it's nighttime here and I'm by the fire, I practically started falling asleep. And it would have been good in a way if I had, because I might have had an interesting dream. But there's a blue bottle buzzing around, so that distracted me rather. So the only thing I have to say of general interest is that though my eyes were closed all the time, I got an image of Gordon trying to make him well. So I hope that helped you a little bit, Gordon.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you, Julia. And one accepts all these healing efforts gratefully, and yours included. But I must say, your vision of your son beaming at you, I'd say that's a pretty strong contact.
Yeah, well, thank you. I hope so, because, Christmas is difficult when your child's not here. It's, but I think I was probably influenced by Christmas, but...
Well, we all are to some degree, aren't we? But once again, I find myself encouraging you not to doubt your experience.
I'd say the same thing. I think you got something going there, Julia.
So,
maybe it was your son coming in to show himself to wish you a Merry Christmas, son, in his own way. Kind of a message type thing, maybe.
I think so.
If I could just interject for a second, it sounds to me like it was a visitation.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gord?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I mean, it's not the first time that Julia has experienced this over the years, and she often doubts the experience, but I've always encouraged her not to, and I would do the same now. It's real, believe it.
So those words that Gordon says, I think he should tell us that every time, because I still have doubts too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. And it helps me when he says that, like other people here too. That it's not our imagination. It really is happening. Would you agree with that,
yeah.
Margaret?
Yes, indeed. In fact, I find that visitations are so crystal clear when you have the vision that you can recall it exactly as it was, in a week later, a month later, even a year later. If the vision was that strong, you will recall it exactly as it was today. So I agree totally. Yes.
Speaking of things that are really strong, I had two, and this is only slightly related, but two very vivid dreams last night. And one of them was because we got the contact today from the surgeon that attended me while I was in hospital. And she said, call me for a follow-up appointment, yada, yada, yada. And I did. And it took a day or two to play phone tag with the secretary to get that. And she did contact today and we set up an appointment. But last night, about 4 a.m, this was wild. I was fast asleep, as one would say, and I heard this very clear voice in my ear, and I mean clear enunciation, nothing dreamlike or fuzzy about it. And and it was like, are you the gentleman that's waiting for the whatever he said? And I said, yes, it's me. And then I woke up and Cynthia said to me, what was that? And I said, oh, you mean, oh. And I could have sworn there was a phone to my ear. And then after a couple of seconds, obviously, I realized there wasn't a phone to my ear, but I had somehow generated this fake, this imaginary phone call because I was expecting one today. And I was shocked at the reality of this. Like I say, it was this perfectly enunciated male voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, that isn't a phone call. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
my voice
That's
was quite
cool.
loud. So Cynthia heard it as well. And we're both looking at each other. And I said, what was that? And, we had to calm down for a minute. But it's amazing what your astral self can do in order to, I don't know, have an effect on your physical self. Amazing to me.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't plan that out.
I've had those before too, Gordon. And and they are quite, you do wake up afterwards.
Yeah. It was
say,
as
what the heck
clear
was that? Yeah.
as clear a voice as your voice is clear to me right now.
Yeah.
It was shocking. I mean, obviously
do.
we hear voices in dreams and stuff, but they're often a little fuzzy and not quite focused. This was like, whoa.
Yeah, really strong. Do you not hear people or spirit calling your name at some point, and
Yeah,
where you might
once
think
in a
it's
while.
Cynthia? Yeah,
Once in a while.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I get that a lot, and I'm always saying, what do you want, Ben? What do you want? And he'll say, what are you talking about? I say, you just called me. What do you want? And no, it wasn't him at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of great stuff out there.
Yeah, like I've had those, even 20, 30 years ago, I'd have this when I was a newbie and learning my trade, as it were. You'd wake up middle of the night and a voice would be calling your name, Gordon. And then you'd be sort of coming out of sleep and you'd hear this voice as clear as anything. And then eventually I thought it was a spirit guide. And then I thought, no, it's me talking to me. But, it took me a while to confront that particular issue, because you don't think that your astral self can do all this stuff. But finally, you sort of believe it, but it takes a while, or at least it did for me.
What we're planning, Gordon and I were talking before about that our next meeting would be on January 1st, 2025, which is on a Wednesday, because we do it the first and the third Wednesdays. Gordon and I will be there. I don't have anything else going on that day, and anybody else that wants to join us, we're going to have it at the same usual times. And it'll be in the link will be in Wendy's Friday report, like she's been doing. So
what day are you talking about, David?
January 1st.
Oh, so you are going to have it. You are going to have it on the 1st.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're there, great. If you're not, enjoy the day. And the time it's going to, then it'll be on like the 15th or whatever. I think it's the 15th is the next one, the 3rd. No, it's not. The 15th is the 2nd. So the 1st and the 3rd Wednesdays are when they always are. So whatever that date is for the 3rd one, you'll find it. You'll see it. It'll be in the report. Anybody
Okay,
got it? Yeah. Okay, Julia.
Yeah, that'll be the 15th, Dave. I was just going to ask, because you're involved in I was going to say George's new group on the 25th. That's going to be a meditation group, is it?
That's the 4th. That's going to be the 4th, and that's on a Saturday. Yes, I will be involved.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's transcendental.
Yes, it is. Yep. And I don't know much about it except what George has said in his talk. So that should be really interesting. So I guess does anybody have anything else?
I just wanted to thank Giles for putting up the links on the chat there for the 2 or 3 things I mentioned at the beginning of the session, the James Fox documentary and a couple of other things. Thanks for that, Giles.
Yeah, sure. Nice going. Julia.
Sorry, I just wanted to say again, as it's the close of the year, and I'm sorry Eric and Adrian aren't here, but I've loved seeing you all on Zoom. I think we started about April, didn't we? So it's been really nice listening to your fascinating out-of-body experiences, and I hope everyone has a peaceful festive season with their families, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2025. But thank you all for your experiences, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you. And
thanks, Julia. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody. That's wonderful, Julia. Take care.
Yeah, see you all soon.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Clarice, thanks,
Gonna
Denise,
be here
thanks,
before
Carol.
we know it now.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Gordon,
Happy New
Gordon,
Year.
I'll send you continued healing.
Oh, please do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Always welcome. Thank you very much.
Yep. Merry Christmas from Scotland as well to everybody.
Thanks, Stanley. And thanks to everybody. May you all have some interesting experiences between now and the 1st that we can all talk about.